episode 137 of the podcast. This week we'll talk about what subthreshold means and why it's so important to understand this concept and be able to recognize it in our dogs. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I've been grooming, training, and working with people and animals for a long time now. And at this stage in my career, I play a little game when someone tells me that they're experiencing a behavior problem. And the game goes something like this. You tell me about the problem that you're having, and I'm going to guess at what you've been doing. And I usually end up with a person who is shocked that I nailed it. I get responses like, "Are you a mind reader? Is there a hidden camera? How did you guess?" Now, there's no magic in use here. It's the experience of seeing the same situations play out over and over and over again, and over again, and over again. And did I mention over again? Because these situations play out constantly. Different people and different dogs, but a common thread. The same patterns emerge because we're people who think like people interacting with dogs who think like dogs. That seems really simple, right? Like, oh yeah, right. We're people and we think like people, and they're dogs, and they think like dogs. I think we sometimes forget that things that are common for us may be new or scary for a dog. Things that are noisy or vibrate are weird as heck until you know a little bit about it. Holding tools on a body, weird as heck until you know a little bit about it. And it's not just our dogs. Plenty of parents have stories about their babies being afraid of nail trimming, or their toddler being afraid of having their first haircut with clippers or even scissors. And we forget that. I have done nail trims on human infants. My nephew and a girlfriend's son, because it's something that little kids can be really frightened of too. They don't understand what that tool is and what's going to happen, and their response is to become frightened. So it's not just our dogs, but some of the things that we expect them to be able to deal with are so normal for us and not normal for them at all. So, hey, Chrissy, when are we going to get to subthreshold? You told us this episode was about subthreshold, and this is sort of the slow build-up. Now, let's imagine something that may be something a dog finds weird as heck. Okay? I know that's tech talk. Weird as heck. As a groomer or an owner or other pet pro, you're going to try to use this weird as heck thingamajiggy on a dog. I know, so much tech talk. Thingamajiggy, also known as a doohickey or a thingamabob. But we want to start at the point where the dog doesn't show a response. The point where the dog can handle it. The point where it's about as interesting as watching paint dry. That point, that magical piece of seemingly non-behavior is what's known as subthreshold. The definition of subthreshold is inadequate to produce a response. Now, we can also refer to this as the dog's comfort zone, which is defined as a place or situation where one feels safe or at ease without stress. That's the mood or the tone that we want to build on or promote while exposing the dog to the weird as heck thingamajig. Now, to make this even easier for us to watch for and to understand, I've been calling it calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And as humans, I think we find the process counterintuitive to start where the dog can handle it and try to keep them there. We tend to think that nothing is happening, so we push until we see the dog having a hard time, till we see the dog having a little bit of a struggle or having some difficulty, and we try to work at that point. And, well, whoops, it happens all the time. That's the wrong point. We're already past their threshold. We want to be subthreshold. And it's one of the ways that we accidentally create the very behaviors that we don't want. And from my point of view, as an adult who is still the 6-year-old who always asks why and constantly overthinks everything and is a behavior geek, from my point of view, and hopefully yours soon, as you start to know to look for it, it becomes so predictable and obvious when you learn to spot this. When you start thinking, I want him to be comfortable the entire time. Subthreshold, at a point where they're not responding, and then build on it to find their comfort zone, that place where they can handle what's going on, and build on it, and build on it in a way that never pushes them to the point that they can't handle. So when you're thinking about subthreshold, you're in the mood of trying to help this dog relax and prevent behavior problem. Prevent fear, prevent frustration, prevent anxiety, prevent behaviors that we don't want, and to just, let's just gradually get you used to something that might be weird as heck, this weird thingamabob, or something weird that I'm gonna do. I know, so much tech talk this week. But keeping it sub-threshold is important, and building on what they can handle. Like I said, if you're doing it right, it's about as interesting as watching paint dry. And I can't tell you how often I'm grooming at someone's house, because I'm house call. I'm grooming at someone's house and they're like, but I mean, nothing's happening. Yeah, and that's why it's counterintuitive to us as people, because it looks like nothing is happening. But what's happening is this wonderful, delightful behavior of just being calm around it. Ideally, it's not something that they're going to be worried about. So when I'm at somebody's house and we're building on something, and I might notice how many repetitions I'm doing or how much I've pushed the boundaries of what this dog can handle, but the owner is just seeing, he's so chill, I guess he doesn't worry about you. Or he's so chill, it must be because it's house call grooming. But not seeing that he's so chill because I pulled that tool away without even turning it on. I approached slowly. I put it close, pulled it away. Pulled it close, put it away. Turned on the sound, turned off the sound. Like I build on things slowly while trying to keep the dog at the point where nothing is happening. Subthreshold. It's beautiful. It's wonderful when you see it. Subthreshold, and it looks like nothing is happening. Now, those same owners, when I tell them, but think about it, a minute ago, you just told me that you can't show him a pair of nail clippers without him having a meltdown. Whereas I showed him a pair of nail clippers, and now I'm clipping his nails, and he's being calm for me. It's not provoking a response at all because I did it gradually, because I kept him at the point he could handle and expanded his comfort zone. Another example with a friend's human infant. If you try to clamp down while they cry and hope that they're just going to get used to it, that's causing a lot of the problems that we see. So again, when people tell me they're seeing a behavior problem, and I play my little game, tell me the problem you're having, and I will guess at what you do. What is really common for humans in general is to push to the point where we are having trouble doing the thing we need to do. Not when the other person or other animal is having trouble with it. We push to the point where we have trouble. Instead, I want you to think about, let's calm this all down and try to prevent behavior problems or minimize behavior problems that might already be there. And in the next part, I am going to give you an example from my past couple of weeks with a new little terrier that I'm grooming. and I can pretty much guess how he's been handled in the past, and I can tell you how I'm handling him now. And I think case studies are a little bit helpful. So that's what we'll talk about next. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. I have this new little terrier. He's about a year old, and the owners found me because they want hand stripping, and it's apparently very hard to find. And the woman who hand strips their other dog said she doesn't want to do anymore. And that's the story they gave me. It seemed a little fishy, but I went with it. So I get to their house, and I'm going to hand strip this pup who has been groomed but not hand stripped at all. So just purely baths, brush out, nails, things like that. I get him on the table, And when I reached toward his face, he was all teeth. Interesting, right? You know? I mean, he's a terrier. This is kind of the things that terriers do. Let's also, for a moment, think about what terriers were bred to do. Terriers were not bred for a cooperative job. We have been selecting them for the ability to, even from a sound sleep, hear rustling and be battle ready, to chase things down, follow them into their den, underground, in the dark, and fight to the death. And we should respect that and not expect them to be another type of dog. Every breed has their own strengths and weaknesses, their own best class in school and their own worst class in school, right? But they were not bred to be cooperative. So when he becomes frightened or stressed out, he turns into rah, 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 which is what we bred them to do. So I don't want him to get stressed out. Subthreshold, right? I want him to be comfortable the whole time. I'm not going to provoke that response. Now, it turns out, as Mom was there, she went, oh, you know, he did get thrown out. They did call us and say to come and pick him up. Yeah, she didn't share that with me initially. And I kind of had it on my radar that the story sounded a little fishy. But owners are always going to have the rose-colored glasses. Well, my dog couldn't have been that bad. Let's try it with somebody else. So she did see that her dog definitely was like, ah. Now, I say, rah, 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 rah. He wasn't actually trying to hurt me. This was still, I'm putting on a big show to tell you I am not pleased with you trying to touch my face. Calm him down. And now I know this is an issue for him. So now my goal is to do a bunch of stuff and not provoke any response at all. Subthreshold. It's not about working through the thing that they're afraid of. It's about preventing it from becoming fearful. Preventing the fear response entirely. A couple ways that I was doing that with this little guy. First of all, I just got him used to having my hands on him. I'm a new person. He's on a table in his house. It's a little weird, you know, and he's never been hand stripped. So we're getting him used to that feel. I'm not going for it. We're not going to do an entire hand strip in one sitting, right? Like we already talked about that. My safety policy and how I work on things. A 1-year-old terrier getting hand stripped for the first time, we're not going to do start to finish and make it beautiful. You got the wrong groomer. If that's what you wanted, that's not me. But now that I know he has some issues and he does this dramatic back off, you know, and that's all it was. It was a promise. If you keep coming at me, I might have to use my teeth for real. And that's not because he's a bad dog. We need to get that out of our heads too. This isn't a respect issue. This isn't about who's in charge or who's alpha or anything like that. It's purely, this makes me uncomfortable, I'm frightened, and I respond in this particular way. The way I have been selected to and bred for God knows how many generations. So I calmed him down. And then when I wanted to go and wanted to be touching his face in a way that keeps him subthreshold, a way that's in his comfort zone, in a way that he is totally 100% comfortable with. That's the goal. That's the sweet spot. That's the magic spot, guys. So what I did was I grabbed one of the treats. And while I put it in front of his nose, and he was sniffing at it and nibbling a little bit at it, and I held it, pinched it between my finger and my thumb, I touched his face a little bit, and he was like, dude, I don't care. That's fine. You can touch my face while I'm nibbling on a cookie. That's perfect. And I did it a couple times and went back to something else. It's not about just getting his head done and getting it all done now. This is repetitions and repetitions of things that were pleasant. So the next round, did it again. Just treats and touching with fingers. Treats and touching with fingers. Running my fingers through his beard hair without grabbing it. Now, again, the behavior I see, my guess is, in the past, when he was a little bit wiggly, someone grabbed him by the beard hair, gave him a stern no, and held on for dear life, holding his mouth shut while he tried to bite them. That's my guess. Because I've seen it so many times, and that's what he's expecting, and it's not what I let happen. Now, I put the brush next to his face. on another one of those repetitions. Put the treats in his mouth, put the brush up against his face without brushing. We don't have to go for it just because the tool is there. We can hold the tool next to him. I can tell him, hey, this is the tool. Brush on your face. And he can handle that. How cool is that? So anyway, that was our first one, our first grooming session. I saw him the next week. The next week, I was able to brush out his face. And we were working on having scissors near his face. And I'm keeping him sub-threshold. The second session I saw him, there was not one single attempt at teeth on me at all. Now, I could have provoked that, but for what purpose? We all need to get out of this mindset that that's where we're going to win our battle. It's not about winning a battle. It's not a battle of wills that we must win. It's about expanding the comfort zone, finding what the dog is comfortable with already, and helping them feel more comfortable with more brushes near faces, or more touching on their face, or more scissoring, or whatever it is. Loud dryers, distractions in the room, whatever it is that they had trouble with, and expanding on it and building on it, and helping them feel comfortable and safe and supported the entire time. Because for as much as it may sound wishy-washy, second session, this dog let me do his face without incident at all. That was a week. 2 sessions, and the owners weren't working on anything in between. So sometimes I think people think that it would take a lot longer than that. But if I'm helping build trust, I want him to feel safe. I'm trying to build this, and I want him to respond to the things I need him to do and just be agreeable. So the way to teach that is to make those things as pleasant as I can. Or maybe not pleasant, but not unpleasant either. Just blah, no real response at all. We need to think about the long term because he's a little terrier. If something frustrates him, scares him, his response is going to be large and dramatic. Their nervous system is wired that way. So why let him think that it's scary or uncomfortable? I want him to be good for the next 15 years. He's only a year old. I kind of usually tell people 15-year lifespan of grooming sessions. He might be longer than that. He might be 18. He might be 20. Who knows? But generally, if you start thinking 15 years, he's going to have a lot of grooming. If I can teach him to be comfortable with it and push his boundaries in such a way that we're building on that comfort, that will translate to others. So when these people go to Florida for the winter, my hope is to find him somebody who's going to continue that process, but also to have him have an entirely different baseline feeling about people touching my beard, people touching my face, and brushes near my face, so that he's much more comfortable with it, so that they don't feel the need to grab hold of his face and give him a stern no and get into this battle of wills, which we as humans do. That's humans thinking like humans. We're going to think like humans until we really look at behavior differently. My goal is for him to be better for the vet, better for his owners, better for other groomers. He shouldn't need to have any particular handling issues for his whole life. We can teach him to be happy and good for it. And that's why sub-threshold is important. To be thinking, I want this dog to be comfortable the whole time. If it looks like nothing is happening, that's the sweet spot. That's awesome, right? Of course there's something happening. Unless someone is asleep, behavior is happening. Behavior is always happening. Responses are always continuing. I'm responding to the dog, he's responding to me. Responses are always happening. And if it looks like nothing is happening, that means it's wonderful, fabulous. That's what we want, right? Think about the dog that is a joy to groom is just hanging out and not responding to anything we're doing. except for little responses like continuing to stand or repositioning for us, which, by the way, he was really good with. He got really comfortable with me trying to hand strip his tail and moving around him. I haven't done his nails yet because they don't need to be done yet. He was done pretty recently. We'll see what happens. But this is a little guy who is learning that this isn't scary, even though he used to think it was. And like I said, my little game of show me the behavior you're having, and I'm going to guess what happened. My guess is someone's been trying to control him by holding on to his beard hair. It's really common in the grooming world. Not my go-to. I mean, certainly there are times where holding a dog's hair or holding their mouth shut by their hair is going to keep them from licking, keep their tongue in their mouth while I'm trying to do something, but not usually my go-to. And I think part of that's because I've worked with so many dogs that don't have hair on their face that I just kind of learned a different way of doing it. I have border collies. You can't control them by their face hair. You might be able to control them by an ear, but they don't really have face hair, so it's not an option. But I want you to be thinking about that. Subthreshold is really important for us to understand because we want it to look like nothing is happening. We want it to be about as interesting as watching paint dry and have people looking going, oh, I guess he just likes you. Well, I guess he's just gonna be good, you know? In fact, I wouldn't have provoked that response if she had been upfront with me and said he has been sent home for behavior problems. She was like, oh, he's very, very good. I comb him every day, and totally withheld information. Luckily, he's not a dog who actually wanted to hurt anybody, but I wouldn't have provoked the response. I would have tried not to if I had known. Once I knew, I didn't provoke the response again. I kept him sub-threshold. So little things for you guys to think about are, is this dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative? And am I helping him cope, or am I trying to make him relax from being scared? Those are very different things. If he's scared and he's stressed out and we're just like, oh, and just keep moving the tool over him and, get the vibration going. That's what owners do and create monsters. They go home and they're like, I don't know, they told me to get the brushes on him. And then he comes back and he's a crazy dog with the brushes because they've been tormenting him with tools. We're not trying to torment them with tools. We want it to be as interesting as watching paint dry. It should be calm. It should be totally within their comfort zone and sub-threshold. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.